All right, so it's been a pretty good day so far. It's nice out, we've got sticky tires already. I've kind of prepped the car for you guys. It's a 2024 Honda Civic Type-R, of course, FL5. I'm just gonna take you guys along for a quick POV drive. I've been driving it all week. I have driven the Integra Type S as well. So I just wanna kind of find out if it stayed true to the original Type-R formula. The FK8 brought along the turbocharger, and of course the FL5 makes some important changes. I'm not gonna do kind of a full comprehensive review on the car. You guys have probably seen a lot of those. I'm far from the first person to drive this car, so just come along for a quick POV drive. Should be a lot of fun. I've got an empty road ahead of me with a ton of corners. This one's mostly like second and third gear. I doubt I'll even get into fourth gear, but we'll see what we can do. Let's go for a drive. Well, here she is, Type-R, Rally Red. If you guys haven't watched any videos on the Type-R, well, here you are. This is your introduction. It's been out for a year now. I guess this would be the second model year. Of course, Brembo brakes. We get these 19-inch wheels here, 265s all around, ton of grip. This has been spec'd with a Pilot Sport 4S. Of course, immediately between, like if you were to put the Integra Type S right next to this, the fender flares are the biggest kind of change visually, if you ignore, of course, the different front bumper and kind of Honda versus Acura styling cues. This is like a fully formed wide body kit. It's one thing that I love about the Type-R versus the Type S, although overall, I think the Type S looks better. I appreciate the look of that car, although I do love the wing here. They need to get rid of this goofy exhaust already. The Type S solved that. They're all the same size on the Type S. But here, if you're willing to deal with that, but let's just go for a drive. It is a hatchback as well. It's very large compared to, of course, the original Type-Rs. We'll pop the hood real quick for you guys before we drive. We've got a vent on the hood here. And of course, K20C under the hood, 2-liter turbocharged inline 4, if I can find. There we go, K20, Type-R. When people compare the Type S and the Type-R, of course, a lot of people do seem to care that the Type-R, is assembled in Japan. It's a true Japanese Type-R, whereas a lot of the ones in the middle were assembled in the UK and then shipped over here. Funny thing is though, the K20, regardless of whether it's in the Type S or the Civic Type-R, it is actually assembled and built in Ohio and then shipped to Japan. The final car is assembled in Japan and then shipped back here for the US market, where you buy it at a dealership. Start it up. As you can see, some nice Alcantara, amazing seats. I absolutely love these seats. In the Type-R, of course, you don't get any of the leather that you get in the Type S. You get manual seats here versus electric seats. You don't get heated seats. You don't get the heated steering wheel and a few other of the kind of luxuries that you get in the Acura. But again, you pay a lot more for the Acura. Leather steering wheel here still, and just still great materials. Even though you don't have leather, you have a ton of Alcantara and the same kind of Civic interior. And then of course you have the nameplate there, Civic Type-R. It does feel a little bit more special in here, but let's go for a drive. There's my pear. That's kind of my dessert for the drive. Hopefully it goes okay and I can finish off with a nice refreshment, because I'm gonna need it. I assure you guys, when we're hustling the Type-R a little bit quicker than your average kind of street daily driving pace, it's a workout. Not maybe quite as much as some of the other hardcore offerings when you get into the more expensive part of the market, but it puts up its own. Definitely, I don't want to go too far back. I'm on a cliff. We've got Honda's Log R. We've got all our temps we can put up on the screen here, data logging, a bunch of the nerdy stuff that the Type S Integra does not come with. We have a G meter. What do you guys think I should keep up? We'll keep up the G meter. And then, yeah, we've got all our safety stuff there. It reminds me of course, the R34 GTR, kind of center display, but not quite the same. And then, so I've gone directly into my individual mode, the drive mode select here, and that has changed my gauge cluster to R+. I have the engine in R+, everything in R+, except for the suspension, which I've dialed back to comfort. And I'll tell you why in a little bit once we get driving, but everything else is set to full R+ mode. So first thing you notice, Type S to Type R. Type R is overall stiffer. We still have adaptive suspension here, but it is noticeably stiffer. I'd say the Integra Type S in sport mode is the Type R in comfort mode. And R Plus is basically unusable on anything other than a pristine piece of pavement, like a freshly paved, nice road that looks like a sheet of glass, or a track, obviously. Oh, the grip is so great. They've done a ton to reduce torque steer. Of course, that begun with the FK8, but they've made a couple little tweaks here with the FL5. It's more of an evolution than anything. Oh, the grip is insane. 265s, like I said. And you get the shift lights up there. I just love that so much. Good weight in the steering too. There is virtually no torque steer. I mean, if you're full throttle second gear and you hit a little bit of a bump with, let's say, one of the wheels, then you will get the car to pull a little bit, but it's nothing you can't handle. And compared to cars of, 10, 15, 20 years ago, it is so incredibly dialed. The one thing I will say, it sounds like a computer. I know they're pumping in engine noise. That's a corner there. Oh yeah. I haven't driven this road in a long time, so that corner kind of snuck up, but it doesn't sound all that great. The Integra Type S did a little bit to add some pops and bangs. When the turbo got hot, when the exhaust got hot. But the Type R just doesn't do that, and it seems backwards to me, because when I drive these two cars back to back, the Type S and the Type R, the Type R is very clearly a track car or a weekend warrior first and foremost, and a daily driver second. That's like second tier usability case for this car. The Type S Integra is a daily first and a track car and weekend warrior, kind of canyon carver, second. That's the biggest differentiation here. And the cars, like, this feels noticeably more hardcore, just sitting in it and everything, than the Type S. And the suspension, of course, like I said, gets insanely stiff in R Plus mode. But other than that, they are the same. This car is just so quick. I mean, even this road, this is like an MX-5 road. I would take an MX-5 on this road. I would love to take an original EK9 on this road, although I think I would want a little bit more power than that. But this is such a good number for a front wheel drive car. It's really a second and third gear car, while still being down on power enough to really embrace the kind of slow car fast mentality. And while it hasn't stuck 100% to the Type R formula, which is, was at least naturally aspirated engine, short ratio 6-speed transmission. Sorry, it's a little bit tough to talk while driving quickly. Brembo brakes, Recaro seats, all that stuff, stiffer suspension. The only thing that this doesn't have out of that formula are, okay, the seats are not Recaro anymore. They're still amazing. I love these seats. By the way, they are definitely like my size seats, Japanese people size seats, not. They're not great if you're a little bit larger. But the formula is still all there except for the NA motor. And when you're going up against the competition, the GR Corolla, not STI anymore, the WRX, but cars like that, you need the power and you need the torque, and evidently, I mean, they maybe didn't need this much when you look at the Nürburgring time and everything, but this thing is a freak of nature, and you can approach the limits on the street, but you do need quite a bit of an open road like this. But it's still accessible, it's still insanely fun, even though it's electric power steering. So much feel, the vibrations come through, the shifter and the steering and my seat. I'm sitting a little bit lower, it feels like, here than the Type S. The shifter's perfect, just like it was in the Type S. The shift knob is different here. So of course, leather shift knob in the Type S. What you get here though is on a cold day, the shift knob is ice cold. You'll touch it and you won't want to shift gears at all. You'll just sit at 5,000 RPM and be totally fine cruising there. And then on a hot day, it's the same thing. It's really hot. So that's kind of one downside, but that was also part of the formula. And props to Honda for staying with the heritage and kind of embracing the brand. It's a part of their DNA. And I recently drove the MX-5 again, and that was the same thing. The MX-5 has held on to the same formula, the same idea and driving feel for decades and decades and decades, right? And the 8.6 as well, same thing. The GR Corolla, while there's not that lineage, it still is like, oh, such an authentic driver's car. And I'm kind of glad that the Type-R doesn't have all-wheel drive. I don't think it needs it. It's already 3,200 pounds. It's heavy. This is a heavy car, but when you're pushing it, it doesn't feel like it. It's such a fun car. But to daily this, just be aware, it's stiffer than you might want. I would try and test drive one first. If you can't, I mean, in comfort mode, it's fine. It's dailyable. I've put on, 630 kilometers on this car this week. I've driven it quite a bit, and it doesn't really beat you up. Just, I would love to have the adjustable lumbar. That would be a complete game changer. This will be a little bit of a longer video. I'm gonna go up again and then come back down. I don't have much gas left, but we'll have a little bit of fun here. There's a little bit of push, but you really have to look for it. Struggling for traction out of that corner. It's just begging to get on a track, whereas the Type S I took on a road trip, and that was the right scenario for that car. So much fun, worth the money here. The gap from SI to Type-R is huge. It's from here to the moon. It is the biggest gap, I think, from like the sport variant of a car and then the top tier performance model that a manufacturer makes. It is a huge gap. It's as big as that gap gets, in my opinion. All right, I'll talk about pricing a little bit at the end, compare some of the other Civic models I've driven, but for now, let's just finish up the drive going back downhill, finish up this tank of gas. This is the lightest the Type-R will ever get. Please, you guys, subscribe if you haven't already. Hit me up on Instagram at Untraveled. We'll see you next time. There's no getting around the fact that Type-R costs $53,000 Canadian, or about $45,000 USD. That is, of course, if you can find one for sticker. Worth it? Yeah, absolutely. But the gap from your daily driver budget-friendly Civic to the Type-R is a bit jarring, to say the least. I recently drove a fully equipped touring model, and for $17,000 less, you get more creature comforts inside. Heated steering wheel, power leather seats, and a few other details. Less is more just holds true here. Pay more, get less. Of course, yeah, that is until you put your foot down and tip it into a corner with more than a slight flick of the wrist. I get it. The Type-R is an animal. The point is, I could see someone driving the more livable touring CVT or sport touring manual as an incognito daily when gas gets expensive, while parking a Type-R next to it, reserved for those special trips on the weekends. It's that dedicated, it's that special, and it's not for everyone. Of course, having two Civics would be crazy, so I found a simple solution to this garage clutter, okay? One car to do it all. The Type-R engine, the power leather seats, the heated steering wheel, and everything in between. For a couple extra bucks, the Integra Type S.